And like this right here, that just looks so good to me. There's
Oh yeah.
You got a log in the water. Yeah, big. That's big. Just like that. Oh, he popped off. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, guys, welcome back to Grind Season Outdoors. So today we're going to be doing a recap video of the fall state tournament that I fished down in Clinton, Iowa on the Mississippi River. I'm not going to be putting together a full video for this tournament just because, to be honest, it was kind of a boring one. I only had 2 keepers the first day and bites were few and far between, but this is definitely one that you're not going to want to skip through. There is some good footage that I'm going to throw into the video, the recap video here, and you know, talk about some of the stuff that worked and some of the stuff that didn't work, and just some of my takeaways, which are pretty cool in this tournament. Just to kind of recap, I fished the spring state tournament back in May on Lake Okoboji, and I finished 9th place over there. I need to be in the top 12 to qualify and make the state team, which basically pays my entries and gives me priority entry to the northern qualifier, wherever that is going to be at. You can buy your way into that now, but like I said, I'll have priority entry before everyone has the opportunity to do that, and I also get my entry fee paid for. So there's some perks to it, and then if I finish first or second in these tournaments combined, that would automatically qualify me for the national championship. Unfortunately, I didn't really have a shot to do that after the first tournament, finishing in 9th, unless everyone that finished above me really stumbled. But I was going into it just trying to make that state team once again, and also just trying to improve from the last time that I was there. I'd only been to Clinton a couple times, and the last time that I fished the tournament there, it wasn't good. So I wanted to do better than what I did before and just try to figure something out, which is what I ended up doing. So stick around for this one. I'm going to throw some good footage into it and walk through the tournament and some of my takeaways from it. So let's get started on it. So I just wanted to talk about practice a little bit. You know, I spent 2 days pre-fishing for this tournament. Well, about a day and a half, but I got down there and quickly realized that it was about just like it was the last time I was there. Low, dirty. I couldn't really find a lot of stuff the first time that I could relate to. It just all didn't feel good. I couldn't really find fish anywhere. It took me like, I think I pre-fished for 3 or 4 days, and it took me half a practice just to catch a keeper. So, you know, I had something to go off of. I kind of knew the river a little bit better this time around, but also wanted to do some exploring. And I know I had heard people talking about how there was stuff that you could find that was similar to some of the stuff I fish up north. So I did a little bit more exploring in practice, and I did check some of the spots where I had found fish for the regional that I had fished down there a couple of years back, and some of the spots still had fish on them. Not big ones by any means, but there was fish in those same areas, and then there was other areas that didn't have them. I spent a good chunk of my time in Spring Lake, which is kind of a big player down there in a lot of tournaments, and just wasn't feeling it. I spent a lot of hours fishing in there and never had a bite, and I don't know, it's a big place and I was kind of lost. So I bailed on that and just figured I would stick to, you know, just trying to catch a limit of fish basically. So my last day of practice there, the second day, I thought that I'd found enough down on pool 14 to catch a limit off of anyway. I was catching some keeper size fish and I shook a few off, but there wasn't a lot of them. I knew there were going to be few and far between, and I was going to have to manage my fish almost perfectly to be able to just get a limit. So going into the tournament, my plan was to go up to pool 13. I had found some cut banks up there in practice. So first thing in the morning, I run up to the lock to get through to 13, and there was a barge that was just getting there. They hadn't even started going in, but they were right on the top side, so they wouldn't let us through, obviously, and it looked like a big one. So I started fishing around, fished around just below the dam a little bit. Actually ended up leaving when I realized it was going to be a while, and fished another spot for a little bit and just struck out. I think we caught a catfish there, that was about it. And then I ran back up and fished by the dam until we finally got through. When all was said and done, I think we lost out on a good 3 hours of fishing time, so that really hurt. And I knew with the cut bank thing that I had going on, I was just gonna have to fish a lot of water and get a bite here and a bite there. So it really didn't help the cause for me, but I knew the right quality ones were up there, so I ran up, ended up catching a couple fish, basically as soon as I got up there. Catch a couple here and there, and like this right here, that just looks so good to me. There's you got a log in the water, you got a good like hard, it's a hard mud bank, and then it just looks like it drops off pretty quick. Just had a bite right there. Like the whole scenario right here just seems perfect. Yeah, big. That's big. Just like that. Oh, he popped off, thank you. Dang. So both of these two fish I probably caught within an hour of each other, or maybe even less than an hour. And they were both the right ones. They were both 3-pounders. So I was pretty fired up about that. I was feeling good. But the more that I fished, the less bites I was getting, and time was just ticking away. So I decided at about 12:30 that I was gonna lock down and just try to fill my limit out. I just needed 3 fish to get that limit, and I had 2 of the right ones. So I get down to pool 14 and decided to fish around a little bit more. And unfortunately, after catching plenty of fish down in pool 14, I never caught a 14-incher. A lot of 13.5, 13 3/4. Never caught a 14-incher. So day 2 of the tournament, I didn't do as much filming. I didn't even really do any filming as I was taking off at the weigh-in or anything like that. I tried to just keep a GoPro going a little bit when I was up on pool 13. And even then I missed out on some catches, but we got through right off the bat, get to my first spot, and pretty quickly caught a really nice fish. And it works perfect, and that's a good one. That's a really good one. If it's a bass. Oh yeah. And I love you using the pit box. Yeah. My confidence bait when it's tough. I love pit box. So that first fish really helped out, and I kind of milked the area, and it just wasn't happening. Right before I ended up leaving, I caught another keeper, so that fish really helped out, giving me fish number 2. And I decided with a little bit more time I was going to make a run a little bit further north to a spot that I didn't fish on day 1, and I figured it might be good for at least 1 keeper. So we get there, and my GoPro had died right before I started fishing there. It was on when I pulled up, but it died, and I eased up into this little cut, and I caught my 3rd keeper of the day. Shortly after that, I got a GoPro fired up, and I ended up catching a few more fish. They were smaller bass, and then they turned into dogfish, and eventually I just decided to pull the plug and keep moving and cut my losses, but got 1 fish out of there. They're so far back into this. Oh my gosh. Now we're getting back in here. Probably won't ever get out. B14. Let's go. So I ran back down and was gonna fish my starting spot one more time. There was a couple boats on it, so I just decided to run all the way through and lock down a little bit early again to pool 14. So I get down to pool 14 late in the day, and at this point I was kind of done filming. I had 3 fish and I just wanted to catch a limit. My GoPro died again and I just put it away and was all focused on fishing. So I pull up to a spot that I had caught a couple keepers in practice and a bunch of shorts the first day of the tournament, and once again I started catching short fish. But I tied a new bait on that I hadn't tried up until this point, and I tied it on for this particular spot. It was a little rocky horseshoe type thing, and the water was pretty low, so there wasn't a lot of rock in the water. It was just a scattered rock here and there in the sand. And what I actually decided to do is take a shaky head and have a worm on there and just drag that thing around the edges of that rock and stuff. So I started doing that, and I was picking up a lot more small fish, and the next thing you know, I caught my 4th keeper. It wasn't a big one by any means, probably 1.5 pounds, 1.75 pounds, but it was a keeper nonetheless. And I decided that I was just going to stay there and just try to grind out my 5th fish before the end of the day. So about 20 minutes after I caught my 4th keeper, I'm just bombing that shaky head around, and I end up setting the hook and caught a flash of a really good fish. I knew it was a good one, so I played it out. I only had 6-pound line on there, ended up getting it in the boat, and it was a 4-pounder. So I caught my kicker, big fish, and had, you know, a couple nice ones from that morning up on pool 13. So at that point I had a pretty decent bag. Unfortunately, it wasn't going to matter a whole lot because day 1 I took myself out of it, but I never did end up upgrading after that 4-pounder. But I got back to weigh in, weighed the fish. I had a little over 13 pounds, so that had me the 3rd biggest bag of the whole tournament. I had one of the biggest fish caught in the tournament. I think my fish was only 1/4 pound less than big bass. So, you know, ended up catching a really good one, had a really good bag that second day, and I walked away from the tournament really feeling good about it, and kind of ended on a high note, I guess. So a few of the takeaways from this tournament, you know, just now that I've kind of walked through the way that everything went, you know, these fish were starting to get into their fall transition, and what I find a lot of times is that the cut bank bite will get really good when they start moving, because they almost use those cut banks like a highway, and they're just cruising along them. And you know, especially up north on the river, I like to fish that kind of stuff because it replenishes every day. You can pull back on a new stretch that maybe you haven't fished, or you fished and caught them in practice and hooked them all, and you'll catch new fish there again. And you'll have bigger fish move in, you'll have different ones moving in that aren't smart, and they'll bite good sometimes. So once I kind of started finding some of that stuff on pool 13, I tried to find as much of it as I could with the little amount of time that I had, and I ran a bunch of that. So the cut bank thing was definitely a deal. I just feel like I maybe wasn't covering water fast enough and didn't have enough productive areas to fish in the little amount of time that I had. You know, if I would have had 2 days like I had on day 2, I would have won the tournament. So you know, there's something to be said about that. I definitely figured things out and was on a winning type pattern. I just didn't get the bites on day 1. You know, I fished some stuff on pool 14. I caught a really, really good one, probably 4.5 pounds on the first day or the second day of practice, and never could catch a keeper out of that spot on day 1. So, you know, just a few things like that happen, and that's fishing. That's tournament fishing. I still feel like I maybe didn't make the best decisions, and that barge thing kind of got me spun out and everything. But like I said, these fish were in a fall transition. There was still some summertime frog and stuff going on wherever you could find duckweed or anything that you could throw a frog on. You know, I caught some fish off of points. I know obviously there's points in everything. There's island points, there's points in grass, there's points in the rock, all that kind of stuff, and fish relate to all of it. They sit on any point. Generally, it's a high percentage spot, but on these island points, in these sloughs and stuff, You know, sometimes they'll school up right on the front side of a point, and I never did find a big school of fish anywhere, or even any keeper fish on those points, but I did catch quite a few fish on the points, and I knew some of the other guys were catching them on that stuff. But there again, you know, I needed more areas. I needed to have that trolling motor a little higher than what I did, I think, and just covering more water, maybe a little bit more time and just knowledge of the area. But overall, I think I kind of started to get into a groove on that last day, and for what little stuff I had found in practice, I feel like I really made the most of it and did a really good job catching a good bag on that second day of the tournament. So day one of the tournament, I had 6 pounds. Day 2, 13, and that landed me in 8th place in the tournament. So with an 8th place in the fall tournament and a 9th place in the spring, I finished up in 7th place overall, tied with Joe McKay, aka the Zark. I don't know. It was, like I said, it was good to leave the tournament and leave that place on a high note. That was the first time that I had brought a limit back on a tournament day out of pool 14. So I'm pretty happy about that. I would consider that a win, and catching 13 pounds down there is like catching 20 up north, I feel like. So I'm definitely feeling pretty good about that. And you know, I qualified, made the state team again, and that's 4 years in a row. It's pretty crazy. Didn't have near as many boats to fish against this year, but nonetheless, I had to go out there and earn it. I had to catch them, and I had to go to some new water. I wasn't fishing in my backyard anymore. So that was another thing. I wanted to do this to kind of prove to myself, and you know, more than anything, just kind of see where I'm at and give myself a good reason to go out there and learn and maybe push myself out of my comfort zone a little bit. So overall, guys, pretty excited about it. I was happy to be able to fish 2 different places that I don't have a lot of experience on. I've only been to both places once or twice before fishing there in these tournaments, and you know, 7th place overall is nothing to be ashamed of. So I'm gonna, you know, go and fish that qualifier for sure next year, and hopefully that'll pan out for me. Don't know where it is yet, but I'm looking forward to it. And I hope you guys like the Okoboji video if you've watched that one. If you haven't, go check it out. And I hope you like this one. The state tournament next year sounds like it's going to be just a one-day, or not a one-day, but a one-time deal. Probably a 2-day deal, and it's kind of sounding like it's going to be back up in Prairie du Chien. So I'm expecting there to maybe be a few more boats in that one. They're trying to make some changes to make it a little bit more interesting for everybody, and you know, make the anglers happy. But I'm going to be fishing it either way. It's a great group of people that run the tournaments. My wife Caitlin is actually helping out with it now, so obviously it's a great group of people running the tournaments. But the last thing that I want to say is thank you to all of the people that help out with the Iowa Bass Nation. They do a lot of work and really don't get a whole lot out of it. I know everyone can be hard on them for not making everything perfect for everybody. You know, that's never going to happen. You're never going to please everybody. We had a lot of guys that wanted this tournament to be on Lake Okoboji, and then a lot of people that wanted it down in Clinton, and most of the people that were complaining and wanted it in those places didn't even show up to begin with. It was just some of the same people that had been fishing the whole time anyway. So you know, thank you to those guys for trying their best to make people happy and just making the most out of everything. It was definitely kind of sad to see not a ton of people fishing it this year, and I hope that gets better. But you know, they're definitely doing a great job and doing what they can, and it's a very well-run tournament. Not a lot of BS. You know, they're doing everything for the anglers, not for themselves. So that's pretty awesome. And then I also want to give a huge shout out to Jim Sullivan's family for once again donating a bunch of money to this tournament. They donated for both the spring and fall tournaments for big bass, and man, that honestly makes the whole tournament worth it. The payouts after them covering the, you know, the top 10 to fish the qualifiers and the guys that go to nationals, the payouts are almost nothing. So, you know, for us to be able to fish for that big bass pot is everything to some of these guys. And you know, for me, it's not about the money. I think if I was here to make money, I would be doing something else, because I'm not coming out ahead on any of this. But we all really do appreciate the donations that their families given the Iowa Bass Nation for our state tournaments, and I hope they continue to do that. It's an honor to be able to win that, and you know, it's pretty cool to be able to remember Jim in a way like that, where, you know, it means a lot to someone when they win that. So, well guys, that's about all I have. I know I'm not an expert on fishing the river down there by any means, but you know, I was able to show myself more than anything that I can get outside of my comfort zone and make some things happen. So that's big. Hopefully I can keep going to more places and doing that, and then also doing it right here at home. So until we get another opportunity to prove ourselves somewhere, whether it be here or somewhere else, you guys have a good one. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time here on Grind Season Outdoors.